You open your mailbox and you see an envelope from the United States Treasury. Inside, there's a check for $2,000. For a moment, you feel relief. You think about the groceries you can buy and the bills you can pay, but you are not looking at a lifeline. You are looking at the match that is about to burn down the entire economy. That check is not free money. It is the final step in a logic trap that leads directly to the destruction of the US dollar. Inside the global economy breaks down the hidden forces shaping the world economy. The road to hyperinflation is never paved with bad intentions. It is always paved with emergency measures that feel necessary at the time. Right now, Washington is buzzing with a new idea. They know that the new tariffs on China and Europe are going to hurt you. They know that a 20% tax on imported electronics and a 50% tax on imported cars will drive up the cost of living overnight. Politicians are terrified that you will vote them out when you see the price of a toaster hit $100. So they have come up with a solution. They call it the Tariff Rebate program. The pitch is simple. The government will collect billions of dollars in tariffs from foreign companies and then send that money back to American households in the form of direct cash payments. It sounds like a perfect loop. We tax the foreigners and give the money to the people. It sounds like a victory for the working class, but there's a fatal flaw in this logic, a mathematical hole so deep that if we fall into it, we may never climb out. To understand why this is a trap, we have to look at how money actually works. Money is not wealth. Money is a claim on wealth. Wealth is the actual stuff. It is the food on the shelves, the cars in the lots, the oil in the pipelines, and the microchips in your phone. When the government prints a check and sends it to you, they are creating more claims on wealth. But they are not creating more stuff. In 2020, we saw what happens when you print trillions of dollars of new claims while the supply of stuff is restricted. We had supply chain lockdowns that meant fewer cars and fewer houses were being built. Then the government sent everyone checks. The result was the highest inflation in 40 years. Prices exploded because too much money was chasing too few goods. But what is happening now is far more dangerous than 2020. In 2020, the supply shock was temporary. Factories eventually reopened. Ships eventually started moving again. This time, the supply shock is intentional and permanent. The whole point of the new tariffs is to block foreign goods from entering the country. The government is deliberately restricting the supply of cheap TVs and cheap clothes and cheap parts. So here is the equation. We are drastically reducing the amount of stuff available to buy. That is what a tariff does. It makes foreign goods too expensive, so fewer of them come in. At the exact same time, we are increasing the amount of money people have to spend. We are giving everyone $2,000 and telling them to go shopping in a store that has half as much inventory as it did yesterday. This is not just inflation. This is a hyperinflationary feedback loop. Think about what happens the day those checks hit bank accounts. Millions of Americans will rush to buy the things they have been putting off. They will try to buy a new laptop or a new refrigerator. But because of the tariffs, the supply of those goods is low. The store only has 5 refrigerators and 50 people want them. The price does not just go up a little bit, it doubles. Now the $2,000 check that was supposed to help you is worthless. It covers the price increase for maybe 1 month. And now you are angry again. You are poorer than you were before the check arrived. So you demand another check. And the politicians who are desperate to stay in power will give it to you. They will send a second round of rebates. And the cycle will repeat. Prices will rise again. This is how you destroy a currency. You do not destroy it all at once. You destroy it by trying to subsidize the pain of a broken economy. Let us dig deeper into the lie that is being sold. The politicians say that the rebates are paid for by the tariffs. They claim it is revenue neutral. They say China pays the tax and we give the money to you. This is a lie. China does not pay the tariff. The importer pays the tariff. The American company that brings the goods into the country writes the check to the government. And then that American company raises the price of the product to cover the cost. You pay the tariff. So the government is taking money out of your right pocket through higher prices and putting it back into your left pocket with a rebate check. But along the way, they are destroying the efficiency of the market. And worse, the math does not balance. The amount of money they create with these checks will inevitably be higher than the amount they collect in tariffs. Why? Because tariffs reduce trade. If you put a 100% tax on Chinese cars, people will stop buying Chinese cars. That means the government collects zero revenue from Chinese cars, but the politicians have already promised you the check. They have already passed the law saying every American gets relief. So where does the money come from if the tariff revenue dries up? They print it, they borrow it. The Federal Reserve creates it out of thin air. This transforms the tariff rebate from a tax redistribution scheme into a pure deficit spending engine. We will be printing hundreds of billions of dollars to stimulate demand for goods that we are physically preventing from entering the country. It is like turning up the thermostat in your house while simultaneously bricking up the windows and cementing the doors shut. You are going to suffocate. We need to look at history to see how this ends. We are walking the same path that Argentina walked in the 20th century. Argentina was once one of the richest countries in the world, but they fell into a trap of populism. Whenever the economy slowed down, the government would print money to hand out to the workers. They tried to protect their domestic industries with massive tariffs, just like we are doing now. The result was that Argentine industry became lazy and expensive because it had no competition. And the Argentine people became addicted to government handouts that lost value every single day. Inflation hit triple digits. The middle class was wiped out. People would run to the grocery store on payday to spend their money before prices went up in the afternoon. That is the velocity of money accelerating. In the United States, we think we are immune to this. We have the world reserve currency. We think the laws of economics do not apply to us, but gravity applies to everyone. The US dollar is strong because people trust it. They trust that the Federal Reserve will not debase it to zero. But a policy of printing money to offset inflation breaks that trust. It sends a signal to the world that we have given up on fiscal discipline. The moment the market realizes that the checks are not a one-time event but a permanent feature of the new economy, the psychology changes. This is the most dangerous part. Inflation is 50% math and 50% psychology. As long as people believe prices will be stable, they save their money. They keep it in the bank. This keeps the money supply locked up. But when people realize that the government is going to send a check every time prices go up, they stop saving. Why save dollars that are going to be worth less next month? They start spending everything they earn as fast as they can. They buy assets, they buy gold, they buy Bitcoin, they buy toaster ovens, they buy anything that is not paper money. When 300 million Americans decide to dump their dollars at the same time, the value of the currency collapses. It does not matter how many interest rate hikes the Federal Reserve does. You cannot fix a psychological break with interest rates. Once the faith is gone, it is gone. The proposed $2,000 check is the catalyst for this psychological break. It is the signal that the government has no plan other than the printing press. It is an admission that the real economy, where we make things and trade things, is broken and has been replaced by the fake economy where we just shuffle paper money around. Let us look at the winners and losers in this scenario. Who benefits from the inflation bomb? The people who own debt benefit. If you have a massive fixed-rate mortgage, inflation is your friend. You pay back your debt with worthless paper money. The government is the biggest debtor in the world, so they have a secret incentive to let inflation run hot. It wipes out the real value of the national debt. But who loses? You lose. The wage earner loses. Wages never keep up with hyperinflation. The price of milk will double in a week, but your boss will only give you a 5% raise once a year. The gap between your income and your expenses will widen until you break. The retiree on a fixed income loses. Their pension was calculated based on the old world prices. In the new world, their monthly check buys cat food instead of dinner, and the saver loses. The person who did everything right. The person who put money aside for a rainy day. That money is being stolen. Every check the government mails out dilutes the value of the savings you worked for. It is a hidden tax on prudence. It is a wealth transfer from the responsible to the irresponsible. There is another dark side to this proposal. It gives the government absolute control over your survival. If the only way you can afford to eat is by receiving the government inflation check, then you are no longer a free citizen. You are a dependent. They can attach strings to the money. They can say you only get the check if you buy certain approved products, or if you drive an electric car, or if you live in a certain zone. It is the ultimate tool of social engineering masked as economic relief. The tariff rebate trap is also a distraction. It distracts us from the real problem, which is that we have outsourced our industrial base for 40 years. We cannot rebuild it overnight just by taxing Chinese imports. Rebuilding factories takes time. It takes skills. It takes cheap energy. We are trying to force a transition that should take 20 years into a timeline of 20 months. And we are trying to use printed money to bridge the gap. It is like trying to fix a broken leg with painkillers. The painkillers make you feel better for a few hours, so you try to walk on the leg, but walking on it causes more damage. So you take more painkillers. Eventually, the leg is destroyed beyond repair. The rebate checks are the painkillers. The broken supply chain is the leg. We are destroying the underlying structure of the economy because we refuse to feel the pain of the transition. We are already seeing the early signs of this mechanism. Look at the insurance markets. Insurance premiums for cars and homes are skyrocketing. Why? Because the cost to repair a car or a home has exploded. The parts are more expensive. The labor is more expensive. So the government is talking about subsidizing insurance rates. It is the same logic. Subsidize the price increase instead of fixing the root cause. It never works. It just feeds the fire. The scary thing is that this idea is popular. It polls well. If you ask the average voter if they want $2,000 to help with grocery bills, they will say yes. They do not see the invisible chain reaction that follows. This is why democracy has a hard time with inflation. The medicine required to cure inflation is painful. It requires stopping this spending. It requires a recession. No politician wants to run on a platform of pain, so they run on a platform of checks. We are standing on the edge of a precipice. The checks are printed. The envelopes are being prepared. The narrative is being set. They will tell you it is for the greater good. They will tell you it is about fairness. They will tell you it is about sticking it to foreign competitors. Do not believe them. When that check arrives in your mail, you are holding a piece of the wreckage of the US dollar. You are holding proof that the people in charge have run out of ideas. They are pressing the only button they have left, the print button. So what happens when the loop accelerates? We move from high inflation to stagflation. The economy stalls because businesses cannot plan for the future. How can you run a business when you do not know what your costs will be next month? How can you sign a contract when the dollar might lose 10% of its value before the job is done? Investment stops, hiring stops, but prices keep rising. This is the nightmare scenario that killed the Roman economy. The emperors kept debasing the silver coins to pay the soldiers and the citizens. Eventually, the coins were just copper washed in silver. The merchants refused to accept them. Trade collapsed. The cities emptied out. The complex system of the empire disintegrated into local survival economies. We are doing the same thing with digital dollars instead of copper coins. The tariff rebate is not just bad policy. It is an economic suicide pact. It creates a closed loop where we pay ourselves with money we do not have to buy goods that do not exist. It is the definition of insanity. And the worst part is that once it starts, it is almost impossible to stop. Once the population gets used to the checks taking them away, is political suicide. Any politician who suggests stopping the payments will be accused of starving the people, so the payments will continue, and they will get bigger. $2,000 becomes $5,000, $5,000 becomes $10,000, and the milk becomes $20, then $50, then $100. You need to understand that the number on the check does not matter. The purchasing power matters. If they give you $1 million, but a loaf of bread costs $1 million, you are not rich. You're starving. We are being blinded by the nominal numbers. We are being bought off with paper while the real wealth is destroyed. The time to prepare for this is now, before the checks go out, before the panic buying starts. You need to think about what you own. Do you own things that can be printed? Or do you own things that are scarce? The government can print checks, but they cannot print land. They cannot print gold. They cannot print a profitable business. They cannot print technical skills. The arrival of the tariff rebate is the bell ringing at the top of the market. It is the signal that the smart money is leaving the theater. They are swapping their dollars for assets while the window is still open. They are letting the public fight over the rebate checks while they secure the lifeboats. This is the hidden force shaping your world right now. It is the force of fiscal dominance. The Treasury has taken control of the economy, and they have only one tool: liquidity. They will drown the fire with liquidity until the house floats away. Do not be fooled by the short-term relief. Do not celebrate the free money. There is no such thing as a free lunch, and there is certainly no such thing as a free stimulus check. You will pay for it. You will pay for it at the gas pump. You will pay for it at the grocery store. You will pay for it with the devaluation of your life's work. The $2,000 check is a Trojan horse. It looks like a gift, but inside it carries the soldiers of hyperinflation. And we are opening the gates wide and inviting them in. The next few years will determine the fate of the American experiment. Will we return to sound money and productivity, or will we succumb to the temptation of the printing press? The tariff rebate proposal suggests we have already made our choice, and it is the wrong one. Watch the news closely. When they announce the program, they will use words like support and relief and rebate. Translate those words in your head. Translate them to devaluation and destruction and tax, because that is what they really mean. The check is in the mail, and it is going to cost you everything. I'm Tom, and this is Inside the Global Economy. Subscribe now, because when this era is studied, only a few will be able to say they saw it coming.